Hello. Today I will give a presentation on emergency management and intergovernmental relations. Let's start off by asking the question, what is emergency management? Emergency management is a concept within public management practices. It often involves organized activities that embody the five main concepts during an actual or potential emergency situation. They are prevention, mitigation, preparedness, responsiveness, and recovery. Emergency management has the opportunity to help reduce or minimize injuries to citizens and the surrounding affected community. Research problem. Intergovernmental relations in emergency management. They are important to help maintain and provide necessary services to those in need. Emergency services are provided by both federal entities as well as separate independent agencies. Natural and man-made disasters happen frequently and often annually in the United States. It is important to look into the cooperation between the federal and separate entities in order to provide the best disaster relief. Federal and separate entities. Well-known federally funded relief entities include the following: the Federal Emergency Management Agency, more commonly known as FEMA, and the Department of Homeland Security. Commonly known separate independent agencies include the following: the American Red Cross, Habitat for Humanity, and the Salvation Army Food Bank. Each of these separate and federal entities are important because they each have specialties that they bring a disaster-stricken community. The federal funded departments and entities often help with more structural problems such as roadways, bridge structures, power lines, things of that nature. And the separate independent agencies such as the American Red Cross may provide medical care, hygiene products. They often do a blood bank drive for those who need it. Habitat for Humanity focuses on shelters, and then the Salvation Army Food Bank will focus on more food and water necessities for those who are affected and cannot get what they need in the midst of a disaster. Most recent in emergency management. Hurricane Ian was the United States' most recent natural disaster that affected many people in the state of Florida. Data is gathered from the devastation for better preparedness and better understanding to positively impact future relief functions and procedures. What is a network in emergency management? A network is a structure that allows for communication and information to flow through multiple avenues. Networks are often used by professionals to promote collaboration, to reach goals, and promote interdependence. Intergovernmental relations that utilize networks include the following: the supporting of public programs, emphasizing different empirical studies, and the creation of new theories for better management practices. This is also important in emergency management because emergencies require many different aspects of people in different fields, and their collaboration efforts through a network can make for better success. Importance of cooperation in emergency management. Good and cooperative teamwork between federal and separate individual entities can allow for adequate time to respond with relief necessities. Cooperative planning can create effective disaster relief plans. This includes the execution efforts as well as preventative measures for future means. Positive cooperation also relates to the importance of time during and after a disaster. Understanding the concept of time may allow a coordinated plan to be efficient as possible. Efficiency may reduce aspects of bodily injury or fatality that is likely to occur. Types of communication within emergency management, formal and informal. Formal communication. This is viewed as more hierarchical in nature and follows a formality or chain of command structure. It also can be considered to be a more traditional form of communication. These examples include applying for disaster relief grants through the federally funded FEMA, contracts, mandates, and legislation. Informal communication. This type of communication is non-traditional and non-hierarchical. This type of communication usually stems from previous forms of personal connections. It also may be seen as unofficial or off-the-record information, so therefore it does not follow a specific structure as does formal. Examples of informal communication include emails, feedback, and phone calls. Research hypothesis. Where would emergency management be without the use of intergovernmental networks, cooperation between entities, and the avenues of formal and informal communication? This question may allow future researchers to better understand the topic of intergovernmental relations, that is the core functionalities of emergency management. Our main research hypothesis for emergency management is the following. Establish network cooperation between federal emergency agencies and separate independent service entities can create a positive role in successful disaster relief. Methods. It is now necessary to test the data in order to confirm or deny the claim made by the main hypothesis. For purposes of understanding the methods, it may be important to consider the following. Observing levels of cooperation between the federal government and separate individual agencies for effectiveness of service. This brings the question, how well did they do in the past, and are things being improved for future needs and relief necessities? And second, the need to control for different disaster severity levels. Not all disasters are the same, so it is important to take that in consideration when comparing and contrasting the data from disasters. This takes into consideration previous disaster relief and history of service efforts to better operationalize emergency management functions. These results may produce well in a public survey and then later formed into a regression analysis. I was drawn personally to the idea of using a public survey of not only asking questions about disasters to local government officials, but also those of the public, citizens who were affected, who remember being involved in a disaster and how they felt as a citizen, how they felt personally about how these separate and federal entities helped them recover from the disaster. Emergency management's relation to intergovernmental relations. The topic of emergency management relates to intergovernmental relations through avenues that include the utilization of complex networks through entity cooperation to better serve, may act as a potential influence on federal policy for positive relief and future safety awareness measures. And finally, the utilization of formal and informal communication for best relief practices. Thank you.